This is The Whole Truth, brought to you by the Greenville County Democratic Party. From local city councils and school boards to the South Carolina legislature and the nation, we provide a clear-eyed view of the whole truth surrounding the decisions, the policies, and the politics that have a direct impact on your family, your neighbors, and you. In today's episode of The Whole Truth, we've got an interview with our special guest, Democratic candidate Mullins McLeod, who is running to be the next governor of South Carolina. Here now are Stacey and Charles with South Carolina Gubernatorial candidate, Mr. Mullins McLeod.
Hey guys, welcome to the next episode of The Whole Truth. Clearly, I'm not with it today. But with us today, you have, of course, me and Charles, our third vice chair. And we have a special guest with us, Mr. Mullins McLeod, who is very eager to answer some questions from us. And he has been traveling the state, telling his vision of what he feels like, how to move South Carolina into the future. So welcome, Mullins.
Thank you all for having me.
Thank you for being here, sir.
Absolutely. And so we're just going to jump right in like we always do. And, you and I were chatting a little bit as we came in here. You talking about how you've built your career as a trial lawyer here in South Carolina. So tell me, Mullins, how has that shaped your experience in your leadership style, and how does it prepare you to serve as governor?
Yeah. So one of the main reasons I'm running is because there is a cancer of political corruption in Columbia that is causing direct economic harm to people all over South Carolina every day. And I'm confident that the cure to that cancer is servant leadership. People that run for office don't have to be perfect. They don't have to have all the answers. But what is missing, not just in South Carolina, but across America, is people who run for office, they must have a servant's heart. It is all about your motivation. Why are you there? Are you there to serve your own political desires for financial gain and political power? Or are you there literally with a servant's heart to serve other people's needs and objectives? Because if you think about it, this thing known as democracy is very simple by design. We are to self-govern ourselves. And all that means is that the laws that are passed must reflect the will of majority of the people. But what's happening in Columbia is the laws that are passed do not represent the will of the majority of South Carolinians. Instead, they reflect the financial desires of these large for-profits. The reason why our public policy reflects the financial desires of these for-profits is because we have politicians in office and not public servants. Okay. I hope that answers your question. So like in my career, the last 25 years, I've represented people in courtrooms all across our state. And when you represent someone, it's a responsibility to serve their interests first, to be their voice. And the truth of the matter is, I'm one of the most accomplished truth tellers in our state's history. The last 10 cases I've tried have been seven-figure verdicts. 2 of those cases have been 8-figure verdicts. And there's a reason, and that's because God gave me a little extra aptitude to see the truth and speak the truth. And the truth is, in South Carolina, the people of South Carolina have not had a voice in the governor's office for as long as I've been alive. The job of the governor, his constitutional responsibility or her constitutional responsibility, is to be the voice of every single person who calls this beautiful state home. It doesn't matter the color of your skin. It doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter how much money you may or may not have in your pocket. It doesn't matter whether you finished school in the 6th grade or you have a PhD. You are a citizen of this state, and you are the governor's responsibility. But what's happened is, if you'll notice, our governors don't go around the state having town halls during the legislative session, right? They just sit on the sidelines and watch, and they tell us, well, the governor's office is weak. We don't pass the laws. There's nothing we can do about it. That's baloney. It's because they're in on the deal. They are bought and paid for by the for-profits too. When I'm our state's governor, and I believe I will be our state's governor, what I will do is I will go all over South Carolina, having town halls, letting people know that the for-profits are trying to rig the deal again. These are laws they're trying to pass that are against the will of the people of South Carolina. Here is your legislator's phone number. Here's his or her email. And oh, by the way, here's their financial disclosures. which you can have that shows they're bought and paid for by the for-profits. And then my job as governor is to go to the legislature and be the voice of the people to make sure that the laws that are passed do not reflect the desires of these for-profits. And I can walk y'all through chapter and verse, specific legislation, but the macro, that's the core problem.
Well, let me piggyback off of that real quick. You talk about going around the state and your vision for the people of South Carolina. Let's talk about part of your platform, your economic vision, right? You propose an $18 minimum wage, substantial increase in teacher pay. How do you plan to make those financially feasible in the state?
Right. So first off, on the livable wage, I'm the first person, to my knowledge, in our state's history to say out loud that I believe that one of the things that makes this state great are the people that get up every day and go to work. And I think the way that we as a state show those people the respect they've long deserved is to ensure that they are paid a livable wage. Because I believe it is wrong for people to be gainfully employed yet live below the poverty line. I think it is wrong for people to have 2 and 3 jobs and they're still treading water, not to get ahead, just to get by, just to survive. That is fundamentally wrong. And so I'm a truth teller. Okay, so I love the name of the podcast. Okay, South Carolina is one of only 5 states that does not have a mandatory minimum wage far in excess of $7.25 an hour.
The federal.
Yes, sir. And all 5 of those states happen to be in the Deep South.
Of course.
I don't think that's a coincidence. You follow me? And the fact that I'm the first person to run for governor who has called for a mandatory livable wage, that's not an accident either. The truth is they've all been bought and paid for. I'm the first person in our state's history to spend a significant portion of his life savings to fund this campaign that belongs to the people of South Carolina. It belongs to you, man. It belongs to you and it belongs to you. Whether you vote for me or not, it belongs to you. As God is my witness, it is yours, okay? And I'm spending my money so you can have a governor that belongs to you and nobody else. I've shown the donor class something they've never seen before, and it's a closed fist. I said, boys, I don't want your money. I don't need your money. I'm going to owe 2 people when I become our state's next governor, God himself and the people of South Carolina. Whew, they don't like hearing that. So how will we get the livable wage passed? Think about the campaign as a funnel. Right now, we're at the top of the funnel. When we get down to the general, okay, what it's going to be is this state needs to be led by a man that walks in the light and walks with the truth. There are only 2 types of people in this world. You either live in the light and walk with the truth, or you live in darkness, okay? And so what I will be able to do is once I'm governor, I will take our agenda, the people's agenda, to do the people's bidding, to be the voice of the people of South Carolina to all these districts. And I'm going to have town halls. And I'm going to tell these legislators, I'm going to go to your district that I won, by the way, and I'm going to show your constituents your financial disclosures, which show you're bought and paid for by the for-profits. And when I'm done, they will know you live in darkness. And I'm here to tell you, my friend, your constituents don't live in darkness. They're out here in the light working their butts off trying to survive this day in this world. So once I do that, you're going to have a problem on election day.
So just to clarify, you think you'll have an electoral mandate from the people of South Carolina.
Absolutely.
And you'll be able to have enough political capital to pressure Republicans to work with you on such a bill?
Oh, yeah. Here's the great thing about politicians now. They're very predictable. They fold like cheap suits. They do. They want no part of me, man. They counted on me staying in the private sector. They counted on me not stepping forward. They counted on the good Lord not putting something heavy on my heart that I could do more. That's what they counted on. But guess what? You don't always get what you hope for. So on the teacher salary, last legislative session, the legislature passed a law to solve the teacher shortage by passing a law that says that now teachers no longer have to be certified. That doesn't solve the problem. That just creates additional problems, right? So why don't they pay our teachers what they deserve? Class warfare. That's why. Well, their kids go to private school. It's not my problem. You with me? That's what's going on, folks. That's what's going on. And that is wrong. Because what I tell people all over the state is if you look at our Constitution, Section 3 says that we shall have public education. It doesn't say the state of South Carolina shall have private education. It doesn't say the state of South Carolina shall have religious educational. We shall have public education. And Section 4 of our Constitution says that no public funds shall be used for private or religious educational purpose. So what I tell people is that means our DNA and our birth certificate is public education. And if you don't like that, there are other states you can live in. That means if you don't like it, you're not one of us, because that is who and that is what we are in South Carolina. And so to come up with the money real quick, it's easy. It'll take, there are 50,000 teachers, I believe my math's right. We need about $1.2 billion a year to get our teachers from where they are now to between $85,000 and $100,000 a year. Right now, the failed, broken, and corrupt establishment is sitting on a $9 billion surplus. That's money they've taxed from you, me, and you that they failed to spend for our benefit, and instead they put it in their rainy day account. So I know where they're hiding $1.2 billion right there. That'd be a good start.
Sure. So let's just go back for a minute because you mentioned about our public dollars not going towards private schools, right? So, you have the whole voucher thing in place right now. How would you approach that with everything that you just said?
You know how this corrupt establishment talks about their law and order? Mm-hmm. You've heard that before, their law and order? Yeah, well, I am law and order. Well, you know what the law of South Carolina is? There shall be no private vouchers. It's Section 4 of our Constitution. That's what the law of the state is. So if you're trying to advocate for something in violation of our state's birth certificate and our law, you live in darkness, man. You live in darkness. I don't care what cocktail party you go to. I don't care what your friends say. Just because you got a big house and you go to church, that don't mean you don't live in darkness. That is who we are. And now, if it were to become the will of a majority of South Carolinians to have private vouchers, well, there's a mechanism to legally do that, and that is with a constitutional referendum. But I'll bet you my dollars to your donuts, this failed, broken, and corrupt Republican establishment will never put that on a constitutional referendum because they will lose.
Of course.
So they know they are trying to do something that is directly against the will of majority of South Carolinians, but they don't care. They do it anyway. That's what politicians do. Servant leaders don't operate that way, and we don't see the world that way.
Sure. So, you've talked a lot about transparency and ending what you call crony capitalism.
Yes, ma'am.
So, what are one or two specific reforms that you would prioritize in your first year as governor?
Right. So, this is how corrupt it is. Let's take Volvo, for example. Right now, we, the people in this room, are paying so Volvo can have its own dedicated rail line from its $500 million plant that they own, where they make money, straight to CSX's main line and then straight to the port. You paid for that. I mean, Volvo's got so much money, I don't even understand those zeros. But yet we, the people of South Carolina, pay for better roads every time we go put gas in our car, but yet our roads are 25 years behind schedule, and they've been ranked as the worst, most dangerous in the nation. So what the corrupt politicians have done is they've literally taken public money and given it, like literally put it in a croaker sack and given it to their large foreign for-profit friends. What I say is you don't have the right, Bo. That is the public's money. You earn that money working in the hot sun. And you politicians don't have the right to give it to your donor for your donor's financial desires. It's wrong. So one thing I've come out with is that when I'm governor, public funds will only be used for the public good. And any unused funds, guess what, should be returned to the taxpayer, the person who earned that dollar to begin with. Because of what Aretha Franklin told us, RESPCT. Bo, y'all are the ones that earn the money. They're so corrupt, they think it's their money. No, it is the people's money. That's who earned that money. And you're going to safeguard the people's money better than you safeguard your own. And if you don't spend it for the public good, you're going to give it back. So what they do is if you send a FOIA request to the Department of Commerce and you say, I want to see the deal that these politicians cut with Volvo where it obligated me to this deal, they're going to say, we can't show you that. They're not going to give it to you, right? If you say, okay, I want to see the deal that was cut, but the politicians cut obligating you and me to scout another foreign for-profit, a German foreign for-profit, they're going to say, we can't show you that. Well, when I become governor of our state, I'm turning all the lights on, Jack. You know why? Because it's your money. There are no trade secrets in state government. We're not going to war. They're not sitting on the recipe of Coca-Cola that they're scared somebody is going to steal and make billions of dollars. The government is your government. You own it. So the government cannot keep secrets from you. So one thing I said on the podcast the other day, and I'm not personal about stuff. I'm an issue guy. I'm a truth teller. I see problems, I see solutions, and that's just the way I see the world. One of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the Department of Commerce and I'm going to look at every single FOIA response. And for every FOIA response that sought to hide the ball or obfuscate, I'm going to fire that person. I'm not going to release the name to the public because the point is not to embarrass or humiliate somebody. But these days of hiding the ball from the public, those days are over. It's the public's money. How can the public have trust in their government if their government plays hide the ball? I hope that answers the question.
It did, yeah.
Y'all give me water, I can talk now because look, I'm passionate about this stuff. Here's the thing about it. When people's objectives are the same, this stuff is hard, man.
Yeah.
Like it's not hard. But when I've told juries this for years, but when people's objectives are not the same, it's like pulling teeth. These politicians' objectives are not to serve the will of the people. It's to serve the interests of their for-profit donors. That's why everything is so hard. That's why we don't have a livable wage. That's why our schools have been underperforming our children for as long as I've been alive. That's why they promised us tax relief for 30 years and they failed to give it.
And
you know why?
One of the highest state income taxes in the country.
Do you know why? Because they're giving these large foreign for-profits a free ride. So Google builds a $9 billion data center in Berkeley County. About $8 billion of that is business personal property, literally these huge computers, right? The servers. Well, if you took that $8 billion and you plugged it into the Berkeley County website, the millage rate, I've got it on my phone, I think, it would spin off about $140 million in taxes, right? That would go a long way in Berkeley County to pave roads, to base school price. And instead, the failed, broken, and corrupt establishment says, give us $5 million and we'll call it even. Fee in lieu of taxes.
Can I piggyback on that?
So they get a special deal. Yes, sir.
Before we ask a different question, what would your response be? Because Republicans will inevitably say, well, that's how you attract business to South Carolina. What would your response be to that?
Real simple. That data center, I call it a Death Star. It is a windowless warehouse that does not create jobs. All it does is rob our water, which is God's gift to human beings, not these for-profits or these computers. And all it does is drive up the cost of our power. So you can tell the people of South Carolina all day long that it creates jobs, but I'm going to tell them the truth that they do not. And they try to sell us the snake oil that, it's going to be good for your taxes. No, because they give them a free ride. So think about Scout. Now, this is I do tons of research at my computer trying to connect all these dots. This is one dot I have not connected, and maybe people listening can help me. If you go look at the property where Scout is being built, that 1,600-acre tract was purchased for $4 million, I think in 2022. My mind's saying like November or like 22nd. I think it's 2022. 8 months later, the taxpayers of Richland County paid over $14 million for the same piece of dirt. Come on now. You ever heard of somebody owning a piece of property that in 8 months went from being worth $4 million to $14 million? Well, the taxpayers of Richland County, not only did they overpay for it, think of the school supplies they could have bought. And I'm trying to find out who made that money. And I haven't run that one down yet, but trust me, I'm looking. But that's the type of, they get these special deals and they don't give us anything in return. So like I saw Governor McMaster the other day put out this little thing on his social media, $9 billion invested in rural South Carolina this year. So he leads us to believe that there's $9 billion worth of roads, schools, bridges. No, he's primarily talking about, I believe, Google's $9 billion data center. That doesn't belong to the people of South Carolina. Try going in there. You can't, if you Google it, Google won't let you see the address. They don't want you to know where the Death Star is. And if you ask Berkeley County how much the people of we the people are being charged for the power, for the water, they'll tell you we can't tell you that.
Oh, that's crazy.
You know why? Because that means they're giving it away. And they don't want the people to know that Google, this global company, is getting our water for next to nothing while we get charged for every drop that comes out of our spigot. Then when you ask this failed, broken, and corrupt system, well, how many gallons of God's water are they taking from us every year? They said, we can't tell you that either. It's in a non-disclosure agreement. Well, that's all going to change when I become governor. We're going to turn the lights on, and all those contracts are going to see the light of day. So we, the people, can see exactly how our money is being spent.
So you've touched on transparency, right? And leading the people of South Carolina.
Yep.
And it's, the people of South Carolina might have some questions for you. Sure. Especially when concerning an arrest in May of last year.
Please ask me about it.
I'm going to.
You don't ask me whatever
you were arrested in May of 2025.
Yeah.
And then the dash cam footage was subsequently released.
Right.
There was a statement released by the chair of the South Carolina Democratic Party. What do you want voters to know about that situation, and how are you moving forward from that as a candidate for governor? Yeah.
So first, on the chairperson's press release encouraging me to get out of the race, I'm a truth teller, okay? And in my world, there's noise, there's signal and siren, and what she did was just noise. That's all it is. Literally, it's just noise. So there are things about the arrest that I still have my hands tied that I can't talk about. I cannot tell you how bad I want to tell everybody. Everything, and I mean everything, about my unlawful arrest. But there are things that my hands are tied. But what I can tell you this is there are two sides of the arrest. There's my side of the arrest, and then there's a law enforcement side of the arrest. Before this is over, I will be able to prove on the law enforcement side of this arrest that those officers committed a felony act by taking my freedom in violation of my God-given and constitutional rights to be in a public place for any reason or no reason at all. I asked them, what are y'all – I was not in my underwear, by the way, and I did not say I was God. I did not say I am Superman, okay? I said, what are y'all arresting me for? And they said failure to identify, which is not a crime in South Carolina. So Article 1, Section 10 of our Constitution says that we have a constitutional right to privacy, okay? And they said, if you don't give us your name, you're going to jail and you're not coming out till you are identified. So the first thing I would ask voters to think about is think about this. Here I am, 3 blocks from my home, and I've been put in handcuffs within 20 seconds, basically, of these officers approaching me. I did not try to big time them. I did not say I'm going to sue you. I did not say I'm going to have your job. I did not say I triple maxed to the mayor in his last election campaign. You better call him before you take me to jail. You know what I said? My name does not matter. I did not do anything wrong. Think about that. That's very different than what most people would think somebody that looks like me who has perceived whatever status in a community. You know how I see myself? Just like you see yourself. Because we're all God's children, man. We're all in this together. We all want the same things. But unfortunately, we're not all treated the same. I don't know what it's like to be profiled because of the color of my skin, but I know what it feels like to be in the belly of the beast. I know what it feels like to be powerless, and it's not right. You follow me? So going back to my side of the arrest. So I learned a lot, okay? If you ask, so I used to take Adderall. I don't take Adderall anymore. What my doctor would say is that I was having a reaction to prescription Adderall and lack of sleep, okay? And while that may be medically true, I don't like the way that sounds because it sounds like an excuse. Mm-hmm. Look, Bo, that's me in the car, right? That's me in the car. So what I see is very different. I had been researching for 4 months preparing to run this race for the people in this room, for the people of South Carolina. And I learned an important lesson that there's a difference between believing in God and knowing God. And that distinction makes all the difference. See, if you go through this life relying on yourself for your strength, that's one way. That's the way I was going through this life. But there's a far better way, and that's relying on Him for your strength. And so the truth of the matter is, on my side of the arrest, I pushed myself too far. Once I found out the things I found out, like, for example, my mother's a state retiree, and her pension is underfunded by $26 billion. When I tell you a righteous fire lit off inside of my stomach, I didn't want to sleep. Not because I was anxious, not because I was nervous, because I was eager to affect change. The night I left my house, if you'd said, Mullins, do you think you can single-handedly bring this failed, broken, and corrupt establishment to a bended knee? I said, yep. I've been doing that my whole career. You know, when I sued the FBI on behalf of Mother Emanuel, that case had never been done in U.S. history. I said, just put me in, coach. This is what I do, man. But I learned 70 days after my unlawful arrest, I surrendered. I got on my knees. I said, I'm done. The only thing I want for the rest of my time on this earth is to fulfill your plan and your purpose for me. Because 2 weeks before my arrest, I'm in the shower getting ready to go to work, preparing to run this race. And when I tell you it came over me, it's unlike anything I've ever felt. I start crying, like relief, joy. And I don't go to my knees in the shower, brace myself on the shower. And it's just like, I can't even describe the sensation. And my wife comes in the bathroom and she says, honey, you okay? I said, I found God. That was 2 weeks before my arrest. Okay. And so when I surrendered, I gave it all up. Okay. So every morning I now surrender. And every day I know that my job and my obligation is to live in the light and to walk with the truth. And here's the beauty of my story. I can absolutely, if I rely on God for my strength, allow the people of South Carolina through my campaign to bring this failed, broken, corrupt political establishment to a bended knee. And there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that that is exactly what's going to happen in November. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind.
Sure. Well, this is going to be the last question, I think. So you've talked about building a coalition, about stepping into the light.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, sure.
One more thing. So here's the thing about the police tape, okay? Politicians would try to say you should think this, you shouldn't think this, or you should feel this, shouldn't feel that. All I say is watch the tape. Listen to every single word. And if after watching that tape, if you don't want to vote for me, I respect your decision. Who am I to tell you what you should or shouldn't think? I say, put it in the soup and tell me how it tastes. I mean, it is a moment in my life that while it may be uncomfortable for others to watch, the truth of the matter is I don't want my life without it, because that night is what led me to surrender, and I don't want to know my life without it, because the world looks a lot different once you surrender. There's a calmness, there's a peace, and there's a clarity. So anyway, I'm sorry.
Sure. Yeah, no worries.
Because somebody said, he didn't answer about the tape. So, I mean, I want to make sure, I don't have anything to hide. I cannot wait to tell my story. I'm going to blow the doors off this thing. All right. Go ahead.
All right. Well, I look forward to hearing your side completely. Ma'am. So, you've talked about being a truth teller, about living in the light. And I think part of your platform really is about building a broad coalition, right? Yep. And we are a very diverse state politically and in all sorts of ways. Right. So how would you appeal not only to Democratic voters, but to independents and maybe some Republicans as well?
So this is what I cannot wait to do. I cannot wait to go all over the upstate and speak this truth. So we're all God's children. I don't think I'll find anybody who'll disagree with me in the upstate about that, okay? We're all made in His image, right? I think we'll all agree to that. So what that means is God's image is brown, it is black, and it is white. You see, this exterior that we carry does not matter to Him. We are beautifully made in His image regardless of the color of our exterior. So if you're walking around this state and you have animus in your heart for any human being, any child of God, because of what their exterior looks like, you got a spiritual problem, my friend. And your spiritual problem is with your maker. And that is the God's honest truth. Okay? So how we build a coalition is there's one thing I know about all human beings. Nobody likes being lied to. Nobody likes being misled. Nobody likes having their pocket picked, and nobody likes being sold out. So what the Republican establishment has done to maintain political power for their own selfish desires, for financial gain and political power, is they have told our state a lie. That lie is, if you're white and you're Christian, you're a Republican. Now, they'll say this out in the open. This is not something they hide from. That is a political tool that they've used to divide God's children in this state, we the people. Okay? Now, I know that is a lie because there is God, there's his children. You draw a circle around it. That's the kingdom, my friends. Do we really think God, we fall out of his favor when we leave the kingdom based upon which party primary we vote in? Of course not. That is beneath our Creator. You follow me? But they've told us this lie. Now, this is what the Democratic Party has done so poorly, and here's the truth. They have run statewide candidates who have been afraid to say the word God out loud. Well, first off, how do you expect to win in the Bible Belt? Well, no, how do you expect to win anywhere if you're afraid of the truth and the light? It is galactically stupid from a political standpoint. By being afraid of living in the light and speaking the truth, we have allowed this Republican establishment to monopolize this issue and use it to divide us as a state. Now, here's why they've used it. They must manipulate white Christians to vote for them because they cannot run on their record. They have been promising tax relief for 30 years. They failed to give it. That's fraud. They have sold us out to their for-profit friends. White people don't like that. Brown people don't like that. And black people don't like that. We are taxed at a higher rate than any other southern state, most any other state in the nation. When people in the upstate go work in the hot sun all day and the state of South Carolina takes their money, see, the state doesn't earn the money. Okay? And they take it and give it to their for-profit friends, that don't sit right with people. Nobody has ever called them out. You know the reason why they never called them out? Because the state Democratic Party likes to run state house candidates, people who are part of the system. Well, people who are part of the system cannot cure the cancer because they're part of the cancer. That's the truth. Now, I have an opponent in this race. So my politics is not personal, okay? But I would encourage everybody to go look and see how my opponent voted on the Rate Stabilization Act. Because what my research shows is that in the 2024 session, he was on record saying the Rate Stabilization Act is bad, because it is. It causes the power bills to go up, and it gives the power company a blank check to raise our rates, okay? When the vote came up in the 2024 session, he abstained. The vote passed in the House. It went to the Senate. When it got to the Senate, it stalled. Well, during the 2024 session and during the recess, I believe, he took money from Dominion and he took money from Duke. Then he went back in the 2025 session, if my research is correct, and he voted for the power company. So now his constituents in Lower Richland County, their power bills are higher than they otherwise should be. You see, when you are sent to office, a public servant like me knows there's a sacred trust between the people who elected me and me. My job is to make sure that every single vote that I cast is in their best interest. And my job is to make sure that I am their voice while bills are being debated. Because when you're in a minority party, sometimes you're on the wrong end of the vote. But his constituents still have a voice. When you're in the minority, that voice is no. So when he votes yes for the Rate Stabilization Act, that is against the interests of his own constituents. And it also silences their voice. And he silenced their voice in favor of a large for-profit. I find that offensive. That's what politicians do. That's what's been going on in Columbia for longer than I've been alive. That's why I'm running for governor, to cure that cancer.
Well, Mr. McLeod, we thank you for joining us.
Thank y'all for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
The Greenville County Democratic Party appreciates your time listening and watching the Whole Truth podcast. You can find us on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. While you're there, please follow us, like or subscribe to this channel to help us spread the word. The GCDP wants to thank Michael Fishman from Day Moon Productions for furnishing the recording studio as well as providing his time recording and editing. The Democratic Party needs you to get actively involved and join us at future events. You can find out about them at multiple locations like the GCDP website, greenvilledemocrats.com, and browse the events calendar. You can also keep up with us through our social media presence on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, and Threads. Look for @GVLDem. Thanks again for listening. Let's get out there and do what we can to rebuild our government into one that serves us all. Thanks.